Circuit Court of Fairfax County.
Actually, Your Honor, thank you, I forgot. I have an exhibit I need to hand out.
Okay, that's fine. Which exhibit number is it?
One from yesterday, it's defendant's 1246.
1246? Okay, great. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Depp calls Terrence Dougherty, Dougherty, and for the first part of the deposition, it will be Mr. Depp's counsel asking the questions, and then it will change and we'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we have it loaded too, should we maybe try ours? I think they've got the sounds.
Address.
360 Riverside Drive.
Good morning, Ms.
Feminist cultural critic Bell Hooks.
And remind me, sir, where you went to law school? And what year was that?
1998.
Having received a JD from Columbia, I take it you know what a statute of limitations is. Is that correct?
Correct.
After receiving your JD from Columbia, what did you do in terms of your professional life?
I payments on her behalf or payments, from a donor advised fund that she might have set up, or you.
We can break it down. Let's first from how much has Ms. Heard paid?
We were aware very early on that her intention to contribute the $3.5 million to us was half of her $7 million divorce proceedings. I don't recall which specific communication with us gave us that knowledge.
What, if any, understanding did the ACLU have prior to the publication of the op-ed about Ms. Heard's plans to dispose of the other half of the $7 million settlement, or the other $3.5 million?
Yes, criteria for determining whether somebody can be an ambassador is that they have prior expertise in that policy area, that they can speak in detail about the area, that they are aligned with the ACLU's policy views of the area, and that they have significant following so that their communications to the public that we support reach a wide variety of people.
Of those criteria, which did Ms. Whites identify as the most important, if any?
I don't think there's any that she did not identify any as the most important.
What, if anything, did Ms. Whites tell you about Ms. Heard's expertise in women's rights?
Ms. White said that she had arranged a meeting between Ms. Heard and representatives of our Women's Rights Project and our Reproductive Freedom Project, and Ms. Heard spoke with such clarity and expertise on issues of gender-based violence that she decided that she would be an appropriate person to ask to become an ACLU ambassador, and she did so.
What, if anything, did Ms. Whites tell you about Ms. Heard's significant following?
Ms. Heard, Ms. White's...
Yes?
No, not that she said to me.
All right, let's look to topic 6. What, if anything, did you do to prepare to testify about your role, the ACLU's role in the conception, preparation, drafting, or publication of the op-ed?
I reviewed the documents that we produced. I had 3 meetings with our lawyers. I spoke with Ms. Whites and Mr. Romero.
Please describe your discussions with Ms. Whites.
I asked Ms. Whites whether she was
Mr. Doherty, have you ever seen this document before?
Yes.
Was Exhibit 9 prepared in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
It's not back up on the screen yet. Okay, here it is. Yes, it was.
Is it maintained in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
Yes.
Were these emails, to your knowledge, prepared contemporaneously with people having knowledge of the contents? This ACLU 3033, the pledge form.
I believe that, well, it was somebody in our development department. I don't.
12:44 p.m. Do you see that?
12.
At the bottom of this page.
At the bottom of this page?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yep, 1244, yes.
Is Anthony Romero?
Yes.
And who is Hector Villagra?
Hector is the executive director of the ACLU of Southern California.
And you see where he informs Mr. Romero, the actual check is for Mr. Depp, care of his CPA, and handwritten on the check, it says donation being made in the name of Amber Heard. So I think you've testified that the ACLU, in fact, received a $100,000 check from Johnny Depp, correct?
Correct.
And do you know why Mr. Depp asked that it be credited to the name of Amber Heard?
No, I don't.
Mr. Villagra tells Mr. Romero that he has been designated, or that he has been the point person. What does that mean?
Hold on. Yes, there are documents that we produced that show a back and forth on that point between Anthony and Ms. Heard.
And Mr. Weiler, or Mr. $1,000 donation from Johnny Depp.
My understanding of this is that we that we wanted to know whether this, before we cashed this check, whether it was in relation to the Amber Heard desire to
Seen this document before.
just making it larger. Yes. That she has a concern about issuing a press statement.
Is this document maintained in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
Yes.
Was it prepared in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
Yes.
And was it prepared contemporaneously by people having knowledge of its contents?
Yes.
I'd like to direct your attention to the email at the top of the page. She didn't pay you on an annual basis, did she?
Yes, we didn't receive any amounts in 2019 and on.
Let's move up to the middle email on the page. Mr. Weir to Steve Smith. Thanks, Steve. Her gift is technically unrestricted, but it is weighted towards women's rights issues. What does that mean?
What that means is that there's a particular type of gift that is legally restricted for a specific purpose. And that could be that the restriction on a specific date, December 11, 2018, that came from the online at Fidelity charitable account.
And is this document maintained in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
The information in this is maintained in the ordinary course of this business. We created this document in response to the discovery requests.
And does it truthfully and accurately reflect the donations made to the ACLU online on or about December 11th, 2018?
Yes.
And you see at the top it says Salesforce screenshot. Would you remind us, please, what Salesforce is?
It's our current CRM, our constituent.
What does this signify?
This signifies this relates to the 2018 $350,000 gift that we got, which I believe came from Amber's donor advised fund at Fidelity.
Okay, and let's close this out by looking at 4682. Purports to be an email from Liz Fitzgerald to Jonathan Moresco. Who is Liz Fitzgerald?
Liz Fitzgerald's then title was Director of Special Gifts, but her current title is the Director of Development. She's the number 2 in our development department. She reports directly to Mark Weir. And even then, as Director of Special Gifts, she reported directly to Mark.
Anybody don't do any outside research, and we'll see you then. Okay. Back and take a break until 11:45, okay? All right, thank you.
Liberty, within which is the Women's Rights Project, and even the legal director of the ACLU, who runs the whole legal department, our programmatic litigation work on behalf of civil liberties, David Cole.
But it never got to your level, correct?
Well, David Cole is at my level, just to be clear. He also reports to the executive director, but it never got to me or anybody on my team.
No one asked you to review the first draft of the op-ed.
No.
Did anybody ever ask you to review any drafts of the op-ed, including the final draft that was published in the Washington Post?
No.
She says, I want to make sure nothing was said in here that puts you in jeopardy with your NDA. What does that refer to?
The non-disclosure agreement that was entered into between Depp and Heard in connection with the dissolution of their marriage and the settlement agreement.
Okay, and is this a document that was prepared in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
Yes.
Was it kept in the ordinary course of the ACLU's business?
Yes.
All right, let's move please to Exhibit 37. Have you ever seen Exhibit 37 before?
Yes.
What is it?
This is a draft of the op-ed that Robin is sending to Amber after a conversation that they had to discuss the issues in the op-ed, and in particular, to have a conversation about the op-ed. And then she sends her changes that were made to the op-ed that were relating to things that Robin and Amber discussed during that meeting.
And to be clear, this next draft of the op-ed reflects changes that Robin Schulman made after she met in person with Amber Heard. Is that correct?
Correct.
What did Ms. Schulman and Ms. Heard discuss during their in-person meeting?
My understanding is that they discussed some of the personal experiences that Amber Heard has had that that Robin used to incorporate into the op-ed.
And isn't it true that Ms. Heard's advisors initially revised the draft to remove any reference to Ms. Heard's marriage or divorce?
I recall a number of email communications back and forth among ACLU personnel and Ms. Heard's attorneys where they were suggesting edits to the op-ed relating to matters covered in the NDA.
And then isn't it also true that there were some at the ACLU who expressed their belief that excising those references to her marriage and divorce from Johnny Depp made the op-ed less impactful, correct?
It is correct. That is correct.
But ultimately, based on those voices, Ms. Heard pushed to get that excised material back into the op-ed so it could be more impactful. True?
That's not my understanding. My understanding is that the language that wound up in the final op-ed piece was very different from the original language that Robin included in the op-ed.
Yes, and I need to read the latest version. And Robin told me Amber's lawyers took out some of the stuff that made it really powerful. So in Exhibit 43, from Jessica Weitz to Sean Walsh. Who is Sean Walsh?
Sean Walsh at www.rconsulting.com. I don't know who that is. This is an email that includes in it people other than ACLU employees and ACLU consultants. So I'm assuming it's somebody relating to, one of Amber's representatives, but I don't know for sure.
Do you know who Eric George is?
George, BGR firm. Yes, Eric George was one of Amber's attorneys.
And she's announcing to the group that it's going to the Washington Post, a triple exclamation points. Have you ever seen this document before, Mr. Doherty?
I am familiar with this document.
Is this one of the documents you reviewed in preparation for this deposition today?
Yes.
Was it made in the ordinary course of ACLU's business by people having knowledge and doing so contemporaneously?
Correct, yes.
Was it maintained by the ACLU in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
Would you please direct your attention, sir, to page Bates number 1181. In the middle of the page purports to be an email from Stacey Sullivan, Michael Larrabee, and others at the Washington, well, I'll just say Michael Larrabee. Who is Michael Larrabee?
Michael Larrabee
Mr. Doherty, have you ever seen Plaintiff's Exhibit 4, which is Bates number ACLU 1669 through 71? Directing your attention to the last email in this exhibit from Jill Sargent to Inga Sarda Sorensen and Tyler Richard. Who were Inga Sarda Sorensen and Tyler Richard?
Inga and Tyler are both senior communications department strategists in our communications department.
Okay. And Ms. Sargent from Reuters asked, I'm preparing some material while awaiting a verdict in the Johnny Depp libel trial in London and wanted to fact check Amber Heard's current previous links with the ACLU. Do you recall that Mr. Depp's that this is a reference to Mr. Depp's defamation case in the UK against the Sun?
It appears to me that that's the trial she's referring to.
Okay, directing your attention, please, to page number ACLU 1670, the email from Jessica Whites to Tyler Richards. Do you see where Ms. Whites writes, the answer is yes, she's still an ambassador. That's a reference to Ms. Heard still being an ACLU ambassador, correct?
Correct.
Then Ms. Whites writes, quote, she donated her full settlement to charity, 50% to the ACLU and 50% to another.
Recognize this document.
Yes.
It says here, Amber, I described your plan to donate $3.5 million to ACLU over the next 10 years, as you very much believe in what they are doing. Now, the way in which donate is used here, how would you interpret that?
I would say that at the very least, it is expressing an intention to make that donation
And it's,
by the term plan.
okay. And would you distinguish between donate and pledge given the reference to the next 10 years?
About Elon Musk's intention?
I would read this to mean that it isn't clear whether this is intended to be a pledge, a legally binding pledge to create a receivable. This is something that I would want to, what I would hope would be a legally binding pledge, but I wouldn't necessarily say that this was.
Right. And the term donate here, how would you interpret that based on the description you gave a little earlier?
I would take donate to mean contributions from Ms. Heard.
And what, if any, interpretation would you have that this also meant pledge?
So two things in response to your question. One is plan to donate. When I said it would come from Ms. Heard, I would think that that would be either Ms. Heard directly or from a donor advised fund that she has set up and would recommend. But over the next 10 years makes me think that donate could theoretically be a pledge, but that's something that we would want to attempt to confirm.
And just so I understand, what's the difference between donate and pledge and how you are interpreting this?
If this used the word pledge instead, I would have more assurance that this was intended to be a hard and fast promise that even could potentially be a legally binding promise.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 2. Do you recognize this document? Page 2632.
I do recognize this document.
And what is your understanding of what this is?
That this is the cover letter to which the check for $100,000 was attached, which related to Johnny Depp's contribution to the ACLU in the name of Amber Heard.
Now, you've used the term binding a few times here in responding to these. What is your distinction with the words pledge and donate that relates specifically to binding?
A pledge is, if something is legally binding, it is a pledge, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that uses the term pledge means something that's legally binding. Donate is a much
to suggest that Amber Heard still does not intend to pay the ACLU the full $3.5 million that
I have to make if they're able to have someone else make a contribution to the organization. That's completely fine by us.
It's still more money to ACLU, correct?
Correct.
And it's towards a pledge that you're hoping you can count on, correct?
Toward a pledge in the weak form of it, which is that somebody's making an intention. It would not be able to be satisfied in connection with a legally binding pledge.
Well, you did credit the $500,000 towards Amber Heard's pledge, correct?
Yes, we did.
And although you didn't initially credit the $100,000 payment by Mr. Depp towards her pledge, you agree that that should have been credited towards Amber Heard's pledge as well, correct?
Correct.
Now, we saw a document that Mr. Chu showed you a short while ago that indicated that Elon Musk made some other significant contributions, including $1 million and $5 million that were separate and apart from the $500,000, correct? Is that correct? Okay. Now, Mr. Chu asked you if the ACLU benefited from the fact that Amber Heard pledged or donated the $3.5 million. And I think your answer was that you benefit, whenever there's donations made and the publicity associated with it. What, if any, benefit would the ACLU have had if Amber Heard pledged or donated $1.3 million as opposed to? And he listed a number of topics. Was it your understanding that the ACLU chose a number of those topics, of course, subject to Amber's approval, but it was their idea on some of these issues to address in the op-ed?
My understanding is that those were ACLU issues that Jerry Johnson came up with that might have been issues that could be covered in the op-ed.
Brenner?
Yes, Your Honor. I think it'll take a little longer than 30 minutes. Yeah.
All right. I think what I'd All right, so we'll be in recess till 2, okay? All right, thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case on the penalty of law?
Yes. Will you state your name, full name for the record?
Yeah.
Who are your principal clients?
We represent approximately 100 high net worth individuals.
It goes to credibility.
I'll sustain the objection. I think we can move on.
Okay. Do you know Mr. Depp?
Yes, I do.
How'd you come to know Mr. Depp?
I approximately 6 years.
What does that role involve?
Processing, managing his financial affairs. As you know, Mr. Depp is an amazing talent, internationally acclaimed for his work, but he relegated his financial activities to me and my colleagues, so we provide a wide variety of services for him.
Do you do this kind of work for other people?
Yeah, the results of our findings and to make recommendations on how he could resolve the issues he was confronting.
When was that meeting?
That meeting was on April 21st, 2016.
Who called the meeting?
I did. I called the meeting because I felt it was appropriate to meet with Mr. Depp and to
Stay for the entirety of the meeting.
Oh, yes. He was very interested in the contents. He asked very thoughtful questions. He was fully engaged and fully sensitive to the matters that we were discussing.
Did there come a time when Mr. Depp didn't participate in the meeting?
No, he was very actively involved. He did excuse himself on 2 or 3 occasions. It was my understanding that he was going to contact Ms. Heard and attempt to respond to her concerns and also address the fact that this was a manner.
Did you play any role on Mr. Depp's behalf with respect to the dissolution of his marriage to Ms. Heard?
Yes, I was actively involved in the negotiations of the separation and the marriage dissolve.
What role did you play in those negotiations?
Well, in my capacity as his business manager, I understood his financial capacity and the tax implications associated.
As a result of your involvement on behalf of Mr. Depp in the negotiation, what was your understanding of what Ms. Heard was looking for? His understanding.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
May I continue?
She'll tell you yes.
Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Beyond the scope, so far beyond his foundation of what was discussed.
All right, I'll sustain that last answer. All right. Next question.
Did you make a proposal as to how payments would be made to Ms. Heard?
Yes, me, to issue 2 $100,000 checks directly to the Children's Hospital.
Clear hearsay. He's not
All right.
answering the question. I would ask for you to instruct him to answer the question and not expound upon his.
I'll sustain as to hearsay. Next question.
What role did you play with respect to the payments ultimately made to Ms. Heard? They married for?
They were married for 15 months.
Okay. Were the payments that went to Ms. Heard the only payments that you've made on Mr. Depp's behalf?
No, we satisfied all of his obligations, so it was very customary for us to pay everything that Mr. Depp was obligated to pay.
Are you familiar with an entity known as 2020 Wine Merchants?
Yes, I am.
Why are you familiar with it?
It's a prominent purveyor of wine in Los
Objection,
Angeles,
Your Honor.
California.
Foundation, hearsay.
I don't see the hearsay, but I don't
Foundation at this point.
Can we
Anticipating.
know. Sure,
have you approach?
sure.
All right. I think where we left off is I asked you, how were you familiar with 2020 Wine Merchants? And if that's not what I asked you, that's what I'm asking you now.
2020 is a highly recognized.
Are you familiar with a Spanish wine known as Vega Sicilia?
Yes.
How are you familiar with that?
I know that it is a very expensive wine and that I know that Ms. Heard enjoyed drinking the wine.
How much does it cost?
The cost of the wine is approximately $500 a bottle.
Were you ultimately charged with paying for the wine that was served on at the birthday party on April 21, 2016?
Yes, I was. We rendered the
Objection,
payment for that
Foundation.
balance.
Excuse me. I'll overrule the objection. It's fine.
How many bottles of Vega Sicilia were served?
At Ms. Heard's request, she ordered 5 bottles of the wine and 8 bottles of other wine, so a total of 13 bottles of wine.
Thank you, Mr. White. I have no other questions of
All right,
this
cross-
witness at this time.
Cross-examination.
For your time, don't you?
Counsel, if you'll let me complete my answer, I'll
No,
be happy to respond.
Sir, please try to stick to the question that I'm asking you. You've had your chance to go well beyond the question being asked, but if you could just please stick to the question I'm asking you, it would go a lot faster.
Oh, I don't think your microphone was on there. Well, it's not really, badgering's not
Yeah,
an
thank you, Your Honor.
objection, but
Thanks.
that's all right. Sir, just if you could answer the question that's asked, okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me start over, sir. You charge Mr. Depp $710 an hour for the work that you do for him, don't you?
That is my standard rate for all clients, and yes, I do.
May I approach, Your Honor?
All right, yes, sir?
Me too. You remember that? We did it over Zoom?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you swore to tell the truth in that deposition as best you can, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Can you turn to page 116 of your deposition transcript?
certainly. Did you say 16, Counselor?
116, 116.
Okay, I have it.
And now you just answered no to my question about your colleagues maintaining communication with Christy Dombrowski, but at your deposition just 2 months ago on line 11 of page 116, the question is, what about Christy Dombrowski? The answer that you gave is, I haven't spoken to Christy in some time. One of my colleagues probably maintains an active basis of communications between her and our firm. Did I read that right? Business school terms that you speak. He didn't have enough money at the time, correct? He was spending more than he was bringing in, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you gave him advice about how he could hopefully get out of that problem, correct? And at that meeting, Mr. Depp was given some catastrophic news about his business, correct? Because you just gave the exact opposite testimony here, so that's why we pointed that out. Now, you at this meeting, you had a discussion about his financial affairs and a necessity to formulate a revised business strategy and plan, correct?
yes,
And you talked about the following financial information. You talked about bank obligations and tax liabilities, right?
yes,
Which means money you owe to either the government or banks, correct?
yes,
You talked about assets that he needed to sell, correct?
yes,
Properties and things like that he needed to sell to generate money.
correct,
You talked about ways to reduce spending, correct?
yes,
And you talked about how to get new engagements, correct? And you And so after receiving this catastrophic news, as we discussed, you have no idea where Mr. Depp went when he walked out of the doors of his office, correct? And Mr. White, I'm not going to, this is a long document that we can scroll through, but what I'll represent to you, and Michelle can sort of scroll down, is that these appear to be Mr. Depp's tax returns for Mr. Depp and his companies from 2009 to 2019. Do you see that?
Yes.
And these are returns as part of your role as his CPA firm now, his business manager firm now. Your firm prepares these tax returns, correct?
Yes.
And you maintain these tax returns in the ordinary course of your business, correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I know there's going to be plenty of redaction to do, but I just would like to move these into evidence. I don't plan to publish them or anything at this point.
Objection, Your Honor.
You want to approach? Sure. All right, so 936 will come into evidence, but I'll wait for redactions and they will not be published, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. White, you understood that Mr. Depp showed up hours late for work on Pirates 5, correct? Mr. White, do you see here this text exchange between you and Tracy Jacobs? Mr. White, we just saw the text that I started reading. Do you remember that text?
Yes.
Okay, we're just gonna show you and move for admission of that page of the document with that text. So I just wanted, since you won't see anything else, I just wanted you to orient yourself that that is the text that we were just reading, okay?
Or that text.
They're going to redact it, just that one text.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of this document as, I guess we could call it Defendant's 874A.
Okay, 874A with the redactions, all right? Thank you.
Mr. White, you just testified a few minutes ago that you didn't have any understanding of Mr. Depp showing up late for work on Pirates 5, but in fact, you received this text from Tracy Jacobs that says, "Thanks. I got a call from Disney last week saying he showed up 5 hours late for ADR work in London for Pirates 5. I really need to speak to him before he starts work on his next project in LA." Did I read that? At some point, you became familiar. You can go ahead and take that down, please. Thank you. At some point, you became familiar, as you've testified, with what Amber planned to do with money that she got from Mr. Depp in the divorce, correct? They were just sent directly to those organizations, correct?
Yes.
Can you please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1639? Actually, let's do Defendant's Exhibit. Yeah, we'll do 1639. Thanks. Mr. White, this is a letter from you to the ACLU Foundation dated August 24th, 2016, correct?
Yes.
And as part of your work for your 100 or so high-profile, high-net-worth clients, you've helped clients set up pledged contributions to charities before, correct?
Yes.
And sometimes those payments are made over a period of time, correct?
Yes.
Charitable donations aren't always paid at once, correct?
That is correct.
And when you make payments on behalf of your clients to charities, is it customary for you to send a cover? Your Honor, I'd move for admission of Defendant's Exhibit 1639.
Any objection? No. All right, 1639 in evidence, and you can publish it to the jury. Thank you.
I was actually just asking if that's what you wrote.
Would you ask the question again, please?
Yeah, you write, "This check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's $3.5 million pledged gift." Thanks.
1, 5.
Mr. White, is this a letter similar to what we just looked at for the ACLU, a letter that you wrote that accompanied the check that you sent to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles Foundation?
Yes.
And this letter and whatever payment, or sorry, this letter is one that you would have prepared in the ordinary course of business, correct?
Yes.
And you would have maintained this letter in the ordinary course of business, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of Exhibit 1596.
All right, 1596 in evidence. You can publish it to the jury.
And Mr. My question was simply, I understand that you want to speak your own narrative here, but my question was simply that this letter says that this check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's $3.5 million pledged gift, correct?
We can both read the letter, and the answer is yes.
Thank you, sir. Now, You hosted a dinner with Mr. Depp and Adam Waldman in 2016, correct?
I do recall that.
And that was the first time that Mr. Depp had been introduced to Mr. Waldman, correct? Now, you can't give any sort of legal opinion or testimony as to whether or not Ms. Heard would have been entitled to more in the divorce settlement with Mr. Depp than she received, correct?
I'm not an attorney at law.
Okay.
I don't render legal opinions.
So, you've never met Amber Heard, correct?
That is correct.
The first time you've ever seen her in person is here in this courtroom this afternoon, correct?
That's my recollection.
And you have no personal knowledge of whether Mr. Depp engaged in domestic abuse against my client.
Mr. Dennison?
Can we pull up defendants 1596? Sir, could you read the last line of your letter?
This check represents the
All right. Is this witness subject to recall? No. No? All right, Mr. White, you're free to go. Thank you, sir. Just be very careful stepping down there, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have a good day. All right, your next witness is remote witness, correct? Yes. All right. Let me just give him, don't wait a moment.
Your Honor, may we just ask what witness they plan to call?
I see a Mr. Connolly in the lobby, so I'm assuming that must be the one.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Good. I'm glad we got that one. All right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Connolly.
Good afternoon.
And would you please state your full name for the record?
At present, close protection operative. I've had a couple of professions. I'm a bricklayer to trade. I was in the corrections facility, Pentonville, HMS prison. Of any client you're detailed to.
And how do you know Mr. Depp?
I know Mr. Depp maybe about 23 years ago, 24 years ago. I worked for a company called Music and Arts. The guy who owned that company was Jerry Judge. Jerry started working with Johnny way back in the early days, and I was detailed with looking after Johnny's ex, Vanessa Paradis, and Jack and Lily Rose. Johnny explained. That's the last I spoke to Amber that night. I was too busy with Johnny. I was doing my job, you know.
Did you know at the time, and well, let's back up for a second. Where was, and what in particular made you think that you observed personally?
Just the way, you know, if something wasn't quite right, or Amber could get a bit frosty at the drop of a hat. So as time went on, you know, I could see them change. I could see Amber change. I could see Johnny getting quieter. You get into the car and nobody was speaking, and you know, it just things started changing. Amber started getting a bit more grumpy, which I'll say.
How did she get along with you?
Absolutely fine. Amber was fine with me. Amber was never anything but professional, polite. with me. You know, she was no, Amber was fine with me.
Did you ever see or hear?
In front of security, it's not a thing that would happen in front of myself or Jerry Judge or Sean Bett or something. It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. No, I never seen any physical security. I never seen any hands-on. No.
Okay, what do you mean you never saw any hands-on?
Well, I never seen any slapping or grabbing or punching or hitting. I never seen any of that physically. Well, I'll tell you what. There was an instance, maybe two incidents that come to my mind. One incident bounced off his chest. So right away I think, well, this is going to escalate, or it's either going to go one way or the other. I don't think it came to much. I remember Johnny just sort of, smirking and looking away as if to say, well, what is that? It kind of attitude, And Johnny tips his hat, puts his head against the window, and whoa, I'm out, Another time, I was at the loft apartment. I was in the security room in the loft apartments with a security guard called, do you know what, I can't recall if it was Sean Bett or a guy called Donovan. Anyway, I got the text. I was down there to pick him up to go to the West Hollywood accommodation. And I got the text.
Objection to the extent he's going to talk about what the text is, that's hearsay.
You can just tell us what you observed without looking at without recounting.
An actual piece of artwork that Johnny had got commissioned. And anyway, this big mechanical arm holds this TV. So this can of pop, you're going to call it pop, smashes on that, but by force, let me add, because it made a bang, boom. And all I can hear is it spraying all over the place. Johnny has already got his jacket on and a bag over his shoulder. That's why he's called me in, because we're leaving. I just pick up the other bags, 2 bags, pick up the 2 bags, put my hand through Johnny's arm and say, right, boss, we're leaving. We walk out the door. We walk out the door and we go. Halfway to the West Hollywood, Johnny's already calmed down, he's like, man, can you...
Objection to the extent he's talking about what Mr. Depp is saying.
All right, I'll sustain that objection. Continue.
If you have, I think we can move on.
Okay, yeah. All right. Next question.
Just to clarify, Mr. Connolly, when the soda can was launched from the mezzanine, where was Mr. Depp in relation to where the soda can landed?
Probably.
He did.
If you want to lay a foundation.
Did you? To your knowledge, was Ms. Heard present in the apartment at the time?
Objection leading.
Yes.
I'll allow
I could hear her. I never seen her physically, but I could.
For us, what you can remember?
Objection, Your Honor. Can we
okay. All right. Hold on, Mr. Connolly, for a minute.
And Mr. Connolly, are you able to see the picture on? I assume you can see it on your screen.
Yeah, just can I think, please? Yeah. Hi. Yeah.
And do you?
Yeah, I know that picture. I took that picture.
You took the
pictures on the. Yeah, I took the picture.
Can you just quickly tell us what this picture is?
This picture is Miss Heard and Johnny's honeymoon on the Orient Express on the East Line from Bangkok to Singapore. You travel through Malaysia, stopping at Kuala Lumpur and a few other places on the way down. And that is in the dining coach, I think. Yeah, dining coach, that's what that is. The guy on the left there with the silver band around he's the waiter. He's the waiter with the detail to look after us. The guy in the bow tie, he's guest relations manager.
Mr. Connolly, just hold on one second. Before we continue describing the document, I'd move for the admission of Plaintiff's Trial Exhibit 162 and that it be published to the jury.
Any objection?
I'd like to approach it.
Okay. publish it.
All right, and Mr. Connolly, I apologize for cutting you off, but could you just continue to describe for Ms. Heard went on their honeymoon in the picture we were just looking at?
That would, is it, I don't know, is it 2013? 2013?
Okay, and were you, well, you testified that you took the picture, so you were there, I assume?
Absolutely, yes.
What can you tell us about that trip generally, and particularly focused on how Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were interacting? Ms. Heard went on their honeymoon in the picture we were just looking at?
That would, is it, I don't know, is it 2013? 2013?
Okay, and were you, well, you testified that you took the picture, so you were there, I assume?
Absolutely, yes.
What can you tell us about that trip generally, and particularly focused on how Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were interacting? So, okay, so that's marijuana. What about alcohol? Same question.
He likes, well, he used to like a wine, and the last, I would say the last couple of years, that's dropped drastically as well. It's in my last year with Johnny, it's quite actually rare now. It's not rare, but he's not a big boozer now. He's not a boozer now, you know. He's not, and he was never out his head in wine. He was never, you know. I think I've seen drunk in the 20 odd years I've been with Johnny. I think I've seen him drunk twice. And but when I say drunk, I mean drunk. Other than that, there's not a lot of difference in Johnny's demeanour or behaviour. Well, he's drinking alcohol or smoking weed, you know.
Okay, and finally, same question for the time periods when you formed the suspicion that.
A bit more, I don't know, happier, up, not so down, you know. But I wouldn't say he's not leaping around kicking his heels or anything. You know, he pick his guitar up and then he gets right into his guitar, and there's no major changes really. You know, he's fine, you know.
Okay. Now you mentioned you traveled with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard on their honeymoon on the Orient Express. Where else have you traveled with them?
Well, all over the world, Japan, China, Germany. I've been all over the States, and that was done in like the 1950s styles, you know, like kitschy 1950s kind of thing. And the rest of the caravans were all, you know, like zombies coming out the ground, and it was craziness. Anyway, we go there. There's a load of booze. All the booze comes up. Party starts. Well, sort of sitting around in the sun, messing around. Party starts. So there's loads of booze and weed, and I think mushrooms, some psychedelic mushrooms. That's going around. But the night gets a bit ruined as I'm watching exactly what's all happening. Everybody's happy, you know. Johnny, Amber, everybody's happy. As I'm watching what's happening, I can see Johnny and Amber getting a bit animated. And they were probably about maybe 25 feet from me. So I approach, and I've been working with Johnny that long. I don't have to really say anything. I only have to look at his face. And Johnny can talk to me through his face. He doesn't need to say a word. So I know what's happening.
Direct still left in this matter?
Not terribly much more, maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
We're going to take our afternoon break then. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take your 15-minute afternoon break, and then we'll come back and continue with the testimony, okay? Don't do any outside research and don't talk to anybody. 20 our time, okay? In about 17 minutes, okay, sir? All right, just don't discuss your all right, just don't discuss your testimony with anybody till then, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, Mr. Connolly, we were talking about Hicksville there, and you made a comment that you had suggested to Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard that they keep it private or something along those lines.
I did, yes.
My question is just what prompted you to make that suggestion?
And the screaming starting again, excuse me, Amber is screaming again, Johnny, let's go, let's go. And this time it's a wee bit more force, and I managed to actually basically pull him out of the place. Get him into the car, doors are locked this time, into the car, we take off. I got him back to my apartment using, a sort of secret way through the underground car park and service lifts. I get him up to my apartment, get him into my apartment, start washing his hand, basic triaging his hand, washing it, first aid. It's a mess. His finger's just a mess. It's like one of them cartoon exploding cigars. I always think in my mind that one of them cigars that blow up, the cartoons boom, and it's sort of flapping around, and I can see bone. There's bone there. It's smashed to bits, and he's wincing as I'm trying to wash his hand. Anyway, I sit him down and I phoned Debbie the nurse, who's living in the same apartment block as me. So that's my first thing, phone Debbie. Phone Debbie, about 20 minutes later, if that, I don't recall, maybe 25, maybe half an hour. But she turns up with Dr. Kipper. So Dr. Kipper does his thing, Nurse Debbie dresses it all, but Kipper is saying, right, we have to go to the hospital with this. There's no other way. We have to go to the hospital. This has to be seriously looked at. We get to the hospital, and that's when that's when his treatment started,
Okay. I have no further questions.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Nadelhoff.
Mr. Connolly, you still work for Mr. Depp?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Johnny's gave me gifts. I've given Johnny gifts.
And he's given you gifts over $8,500, correct?
$8,500?
Yeah.
He gave me a lot more than that.
Okay. And you're loyal to Mr. Depp, right?
Yes, of course I'm loyal to Mr. Depp. I'm loyal. I've been
Consumed illegal drugs before Amber arrived in Australia.
I'm going to object to speculation.
I wouldn't know.
Overruled, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
And do you know if Mr. Depp spent any time with Marilyn Manson in Australia before Amber arrived?
Don't recall. I don't recall Marilyn Manson being there.
So you don't. So as Mr. Depp's security, you don't know if Mr. Depp was with Marilyn Manson at any time?
I left Australia to smuggle 2 dogs back out of Australia back. No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his
Objection.
pants, didn't he?
I think I would have seen Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow it. Next question.
And you were trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Correct. I was trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, yes.
And Mr. Depp was refusing to leave the house, was he not?
Not so much refused. He just wanted 2 minutes to say his piece.
You took Mr. Depp's arm to try to move him out, but he broke away. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, so he was strong enough to break away from your grip, correct?
No.
So you had his arm and he broke away, though, correct?
No.
Isn't that what you just said?
No, I let him go.
You let go. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
I'm not going to drag him by it.
So Mr. Depp's your boss. You'll do what Mr. Depp wants, correct?
No.
It's not easy to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Not easy.
Okay. Now, can we play Exhibit 380A, which is already in evidence?
Plaintiffs or defendants, I'm sorry.
It's defendants, Exhibit 380A.
Defendants 380A.
What is this? Sorry, what is this?
And this is a recording from Australia, and it's just of Mr. Depp.
380. I have, Jamie says it was ID'd but never admitted.
It was never admitted. It was.
Your Honor, the recordings from Australia have other voices on them. And
We're only
I
asking
also-
for the. It's only the clip of Mr. Depp.
Okay, wait, I have it. It's actually plaintiffs 380A, minute 33 to 34.
What's the foundation for using it with this witness?
He was at the house.
It's in evidence,
It's in
that's
evidence.
fine. So you're playing that clip, correct?
Correct.
And it's on plaintiffs.
What you are and who you are and how you fucked me over and make me feel sick of myself. There's still a lot left in the day. Maybe you should dye your hair. I see.
Mr. Depp was upset and angry when you saw him at the house, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Now, did you take Mr. Depp?
Your Honor, I'm going to object on foundation grounds. The witness is not even copied on this document.
I'm going to ask him a question and ask him if it refreshes his recollection. That's all I was going to ask him about. I can use any document to refresh.
Or if you want to approach for a second, just see what you can take the document down. Switch document.
You can take it down. Was Mr. Depp's finger was filled with dirt, grime, and paint when you saw it?
Yes.
And now, you say you saw no bruises or cuts on Amber on March 8, 2015, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that your main concern was Mr. Depp and getting him out of the house, correct?
Correct.
You weren't concentrating on Amber, correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll allow it. That's fine. Next question.
Before the fight started?
No.
Okay. Were you with the company when were you with the group?
No.
Okay.
I was maybe 20 feet away observing. That's
private. You talked about a private plane that you saw a plastic lighter bounce off of Mr. Depp's chest, correct?
Correct.
And you said you saw Mr. Depp smirking and then he said, "Was that it?" Is that right?
No.
Okay. You don't know what started the fight there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked about at the lofts, I think you called it in Los Angeles, you saw a Coke can get thrown somewhere in the vicinity of Mr. Depp, correct?
I seen a can.
Right.
Not a Coke can. I couldn't tell you what can it was.
Okay. And you don't know what happened before you saw the Coke can get thrown, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked about this picture of that you took in Southeast Asia, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you never mentioned in the UK matter or in your witness statement Mr. Depp having scratches and bruises on the train, correct?
I was never prompted. I was never asked.
You gave a witness statement that gave the what you saw and the relationship between Amber and Mr. Depp, and you never talked about bruises or cuts on Mr. Depp in Southeast Asia, correct?
No, I wasn't asked that.
Okay. Now, you said only Johnny could make requests for a private dining car, isn't that right?
I said that.
Only Johnny needed a private dining car. Miss Heard didn't need a private dining car, correct?
That would be correct. Oh yeah, that would definitely be correct. Yeah,
Okay.
only Johnny Depp would need a private dining car, but Johnny doesn't want a private dining car.
Okay. Now, you were not present in Miss Heard and Mr. Depp's cabin on the train, right?
No.
And if a fight occurred,
That's correct.
and if a fight occurred in the cabin, you'd have no way of knowing about it, right?
I wouldn't know.
And you don't know if Mr. Depp was strangling Miss Heard, do you?
No, I wouldn't know.
You don't know if Mr. Depp had his shirt wrapped around Amber's neck, do you?
Objection, speculation, cumulative.
No, I wouldn't know. The only reason I would know anything in that cabin.
No, okay, you wouldn't know. You answered, sir,
Sorry.
you answered that.
All right, we can move on.
Okay. And take it down. Mr. Connolly, you agree that Ms. Heard's been nothing but respectful and professional to you, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Mr. Connolly, very briefly, when you were in Ms. Heard's presence in the house in Australia on the day that Mr. Depp...
Recall, did not discuss your testimony with anybody and don't watch anything about this case, okay? But you're free to log off today.
Your Honor, yeah.
All right, you're free to log off today, though,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, your next witness. Mr. Jenkins? Yeah. Mr. Jenkins, can you hear me, sir?
Afternoon. Yes, I can, Your Honor.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir. All right. If you raise your right hand for me, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Jenkins. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
And could you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, I do.
And when did you first meet Mr. Depp?
1993.
How did you first meet Mr. Depp? Per week, would you provide those services to Mr. Depp?
40 to 60 hours.
And can you describe generally your interactions with Mr. Depp in the time that you've worked for him?
Pleasant. Always upbeat.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Amber Heard?
Yes.
And when did you first meet Miss Heard?
After.
Sure. So turning your attention to April 21st, 2016, can you tell the jury what you recall about that day?
It was the birthday party being held at the penthouse.
And when you say the penthouse, what are you referring to?
It's the Eastern Columbia building.
And what were you doing that evening?
That evening, I was assigned security on the detail.
Were you inside the residence while the birthday party was taking place?
I was in the CP, the command post that's stationed on the same floor, right outside of the elevators.
And did you interact with Miss Heard at all that evening?
Yes, I did. In regards to getting her clients' wallet.
Did Miss Heard say anything else to you about this altercation?
Nothing except they were fighting.
So what did you do after Miss Heard informed you that she had thrown Mr. Depp's personal property off the balcony?
Formulated a plan with Norm from the office to use the Find My Phone app hit the streets and try to get
And what was the reward?
$420, chicken tacos, chips, apples, Fiji water.
After finding Mr. Depp's phone, what did you do? Mr. Jenkins, what observations did you make about Ms. Heard at Coachella in April 2016?
She had no worries. She was there to whoop it up. It's her birthday.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jenkins.
Good afternoon.
So just to be clear on the chronology, you met Mr. Depp in 1993, is that right?
Correct.
You receive pay for the work that you do for Mr.
Yes.
Depp, correct?
Of course, yes, of course.
And what Mr. Depp's security is your highest priority in your job, correct?
Yes, it is.
You're loyal to Mr.
His
Depp?
and his family.
Just him, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please pull up the witness statement, Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins, do you remember giving testimony on Mr. Depp's behalf in the UK trial?
Yes, I did.
And you gave a witness statement first in writing, correct? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then you were examined by the attorneys in the trial, correct?
Correct.
Okay. A statement of Starling Jenkins, right?
Correct.
And this is the statement that you wrote and signed as part of the UK trial on behalf. And we can go from there. On paragraph 13, you wrote in your witness statement in the UK trial, the Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. Did I read that right?
If that's what it says, that's what it says. I'm telling you, the phone was in Skid Row.
Okay,
I have
so
a photo of the gentleman that found it. I have the location where the phone was found.
isn't Skid Row just a few blocks away from the Eastern Columbia building?
No, it's on 6th and Main, I guess, depending on what area you are.
Okay, so one of these two sworn statements.
It was found on Broadway by the unhoused man, and then he lives off of Skid Row.
Okay. Now let's move on to Coachella, please. You were with Amber and her friends that weekend at Coachella, and you testified a little bit about what you saw. Is it fair to say that Amber and her friends were having a good time that weekend?
Yes, it was.
And there were thousands of other people at that music festival too, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And you did not bother to respond to that text, correct?
Correct.
And that was the last communication that you had with her, correct?
Correct.
Now, you weren't, just to be clear, you weren't at Amber's house on Orange Avenue in March 2013 when Johnny was there, correct?
I might have driven him to the location. I'm familiar with the address.
But you didn't enter the house at any point in March 2013, correct?
Depending on if he had luggage or gifts going upstairs, I might have.
But you didn't.
Not there, correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Australia in March 2015, correct?
Correct.
You weren't at Thanksgiving with them in Penthouse 5 of the Eastern Columbia building in November 2015, correct?
I believe I was there.
You didn't.
I might have been in some detail. I don't have the schedule.
The Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. Walked out. Could you please read for the jury the second part? So do you recall where you found the iPhone that day?
Yes, I do.
Objection asked and answered.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Jenkins, moving to Coachella.
The proceedings, it's up to you, but you're done for today, though. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you to the court.
All right, have a good day.
You also.
All right. All right, I think it's close enough to 5:30 that I think we've had enough of a week. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to go ahead and be done with the testimony for this week. Although, since I won't see you until Monday, I want to give you the long jury instruction that I give you every Thursday evening, just so we all remember our responsibilities, okay? So at this time, remember that you are not to read anything about this case. You are not to watch anything about this case. You are not. All right. And as we did, work in progress. Okay, so are we still doing 19 tomorrow?